Hello and welcome to another episode of the CUFI Weekly, and this week I want to talk about the recent so-called Freedom Flotilla. If you didn't know about this, earlier this month a flotilla of ships left from Italy with the goal, they said, to break the siege of Gaza and deliver aid to the Strip.
Ditch the phone! Ditch the phone! Ditch the phone! Yes. Phones in the water, please!
Now, that ship was intercepted peacefully by the Israeli Navy. They led the ship to the port of Ashdod in Israel, where the members of this flotilla were deported back to their home countries. There were some that resisted and rejected the deportation order, and they're currently being detained. Look, without a doubt, there is a war happening, and with that war, there are people suffering in Gaza. There's no doubt about that. There are innocent people who are suffering. That is not Israel's fault. That is the fault of Hamas. They brought this terrible war on Gaza. It is Hamas who refused to release the hostages, prolonging this war, who refused to disarm. And it's Hamas who keep rejecting ceasefire agreements which are being proposed by the United States and other countries. But none of that was acknowledged by the members of this flotilla. There is a detachment from reality, showing that it's not about Gaza, it's not about the people of Gaza, because just a few days ago, Hamas executed a number of Gazans in the street. According to official sources, there was less than a truckload of aid. How much money was spent on this flotilla? How much time and effort and financial resources went into bringing this group together in Italy and then sailing from Italy to the Middle East to bring less than a truckload of supplies? This was never about aid. It was never about anything substantial. It was a PR stunt. They obviously knew that Israel was not going to allow them to just sail into Gaza. It's ridiculous to even assume that. And they had already made pre-prepared videos saying that they had been kidnapped by Israeli forces.
My name is Greta Thunberg and I am from Sweden. If you see this video, we have been intercepted and kidnapped in international waters by the Israeli occupational forces or forces that support Israel. I urge all my friends, family and comrades to put pressure on the Swedish government to release me and the others as soon as possible.
Now that's particularly disgusting given that there are 56 people in Gaza who've been there for over 600 days who were actually kidnapped. They weren't greeted by sandwiches like Greta was. They wanted to see Israeli forces react in a negative way. They didn't. They brought the ship into Ashdod, they provided the people with food, and they did medical checks to make sure that everybody was healthy. This was the difference. This is what makes Israel different. This is what makes a democratic state which puts human life first different from terrorists and the terrorist supporters. And then there is this piece which I think is essential. The Israeli Foreign Ministry, the Israeli Defense Ministry decided that if these people cared so much about the Middle East, they cared so much about human suffering on this flotilla, as they said, let them watch the 45-minute unedited footage on the Hamas attacks. Let them see what Hamas recorded themselves to show the world, to proudly trumpet that they were murdering and kidnapping Jews in Israel. The reports coming out of Israel say that when the video was played, these so-called activists closed their eyes. They didn't want to watch it. And my question is, and this is a question that I think we should be asking more of, why? Why did you not want to watch it? You were okay to get to Italy. You were okay to sail from Italy to Israel. You were okay to post non-stop about what's going on in Gaza, streaming every single thing that happened to say that you're being kidnapped. Why are you not willing to watch a 45-minute video that Hamas recorded about what they did on October 7th? It's no question if they started watching it and were so horrified and sickened by what they were seeing that they stopped watching it. They simply closed their eyes and refused. And that is exactly what we're seeing in the world today. Israel did not want this war. Israel did not start this war, but people closed their eyes to that fact. It's not a question of they didn't know what was happening, but they closed their eyes to it. And this is what we're dealing with when it comes to Jew hatred. It is a complete departure from reality, and it's closing your eyes to reality. And it's twofold, and I'll explain why. Because on the one hand, you have the anti-Semites, whether they even realize they're anti-Semites, who cannot accept the reality of what's happening when it comes to Israel and the Jewish people. There's that famous poem from Pastor Martin Niemöller from the Second World War when he says, first they came for the communists and I didn't speak up because I was a communist. Then they came for the Jews and I didn't speak up because I was not a Jew. I am paraphrasing. And ultimately he ends up with, and then they came for me and there was no one left to speak up. That is why, with only a few weeks remaining to the CUFI Summit, I am imploring you and inviting you to our conference. In our 20th year, there has never been the urgency to stand with Israel and the Jewish people right now, especially as Christians. This is a moment where we make our voice heard. I'm inviting everybody, Christian, Jewish, please come to our conference from June 30th, July 2nd. Let's stand in solidarity and let's send a very loud message to the anti-Semites of the world, to our elected leaders in Washington, D.C., that America stands with Israel, now and always. This is Kasim Hafeez for the CUFI Weekly. For Zion's sake, do not remain silent. Thanks for checking out this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe so you get a notification every time a new episode hits. And if you want to check out some of our previous episodes, and we've got some really good ones, click on one of the thumbnails and that will take you right there. And finally, if you want to know more about CUFI and the work we do, go to cufi.org to check out all the resources we have available free to you.